Hello there everyone, it's Carol here from the Crafty Emporium. As you can see, I've got 3 journals in front of me, and there will be a 4th one later on today. I wanted to make some basic journals that I could start to store ideas and inspiration. Now, the other reason that I'm doing these is because last year on my Facebook group, I asked about what sort of swaps everyone wanted to do. And so I want to do this as well as a little bit of a tutorial, I suppose, how a beginner can make a basic journal, make it into something beautiful, and then swap it with another beginner as well. Now, this particular one here, it's just a cover at the moment. This one is one that I've started that I'll be using partly in this tutorial, and then this one is one that I've started and I've added some things to it. I want to do the basic journal, show you how to make it, and then in some follow-up videos I'm going to show you some ideas. If you want to use your journal as an inspirational journal, then I've got some ideas of what you can include in it. So on this page here, I've put a scrappy notebook on, and I've written a little note about some thoughts about how you go about making one. On this next page, so we've got here double corner pockets help to support your larger items. So it's a little bit of, there's the idea there for you to see visually, and then you can write any notes on there about how you go about making it, what it's used for, and that sort of thing. What I want to do is I want to make each journal about a specific thing. So I want to make one that's going to be about scraps, but the strips, you know, because we end up with lots of long strips. So I want to use one for that. I want to use one for book page ideas, so that will go in another one, and so on and so forth, so that I'll have a small collection of different ideas in each journal. So I'm going to go on to how I formed the basic cover and my selection of pages, and so I'll see you in a minute as I just go through that. See you in a bit. And I've chosen these 2 pieces of card as my front cover. Now, don't feel that you've got to follow me in terms of what the materials that I'm using. Use what you've got, all right? So if all you've got is a cereal packet or an Amazon packaging envelope, use those and then cover them with some of your papers. But I'm using 2 sheets of card here. I'm not cutting these down to any size. I'm just going to keep them as they are. I just want to create something that's really quick and simple. So I'm just going to use my Collal glue to just glue the 2 together with the cover or the journal, but I do want it to look pretty. And this piece of card here has actually got glitter on it as well. So this is, they're both about a 220 GSM card. Sorry, don't know what that is in pounds. You'll have to do a bit of a Google search. Now, if I was going to use Tyvek, which is a paper, oh, get me teeth in gear, a plastic coated paper, which helps when you're sewing your pages into your journal to just give the spine a little bit of extra strength. But I'm going to use some fabric instead as my spine supporter, and I've just ripped it to about a 2-inch strip. So I'm going to use that on my spine, and then I'm just going to crease down the middle. Now, I could just literally fold it in half, but I find that doing this gives me a slightly better crease for it. So A4 is 11 3/4 inches wide, which is 5 7/8 is the centre point. So I'm just going to that side, and the same on that side. And then I'm going to wait for the glue to dry before I actually bend it, because if I try and bend it beforehand, this will all ruckle up because the glue hasn't totally set. But leave it as long as is possible before you actually bend it over. And then I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac glue, and I need my ruler. There we go. So this ruler is 2 inches wide. As soon as I've cut my fabric about 2 inches, I'm just going to mark that centre so that I can see it. And I'm just going to put the centre line here on there. So then I know I've got an inch on that side of the crease and an inch on that side. And then I know that that's the area that the glue needs to go on. Now with Fabri-Tac it can get a little bit gloopy sometimes. And so someone suggested, because it's an acetone based glue, someone suggested that if you put a few drops of nail polish remover into it, because that's also acetone, it helps you to just thin the glue down a little. But what I did find was I did that and then immediately turned it over, and of course it just went everywhere. So you have to wait for it to blend in with the glue a bit and do a little bit of shake, rattle and roll. I'm going to do a bit of shaking up. Now you have to act fairly quickly with Fabri-Tac. And I just want a line of glue down the edge of the fabric, so that if I didn't cover the area here where the fabric's going to sit, at least the ends are going to be stuck down. Okay, whoop, that'll do. Now if all you've got is PVA glue, that's absolutely fine, you can use it. You might find though with PVA glue and fabric that it'll seep through and it might leave a mark on your fabric. But you could also use calico as well, which is a lot thicker fabric than 100% cotton. So don't feel that you've got to go out and necessarily buy all these specialist glues. And then I'm going to leave my edges overhanging a little, because I want to fray the edges a touch later on. So I'm just going to trim off a little bit of the excess, and I'm going to leave about 1/4 inch. Just square it off a little for now, and then I'll fray it later on. And that's the basis of my cover made. I'm not going to fold it now because I want to wait for that glue to set. So I'll go on to talking about the pages now. So one of the other things that I've done with the covers is with my sewing machine. I just went round and did a little bit of fancy stitching. I did 2 rows on this one, just to add a little bit more decoration to the front cover. I will be doing more on the front cover itself, but just as an initial starter to decorating it, that's what I've actually done. It's not imperative that you do that, so if you don't own a sewing machine, it's absolutely fine. Now the pages themselves, as I say, I'm using up some of my stash. I was going through some of the papers that I own, and you know when you get a magazine and it comes with like loads of freebie papers in, well, that's what these decorative papers are that are in this selection of pages. And the magazine was from 2014. So I thought it was well timed that I used them up. Now it could be tea dyed, coffee dyed, plain paper, it's entirely up to you. But so what I did was I gathered papers together. I was using this as my starting point, these papers that I got from the magazine, and then I added to it so that they all complemented each other. So I'm going to separate them out a bit so that you can see. So I used the patterned paper, and then I've used some book pages. And these particular book pages, I undid them where they were stitched. I just clipped the stitches and pulled them out so that they were a double page, and they were really pretty, and pastel flowers in there which just went beautifully with the patterned paper. Now the book that I took them from was this one, which is the Reader's Digest Complete Library of the Garden. So I used some pages from the book as well, because as I say, it complemented the actual papers. The other pages that I like to use are index pages from books, because you look at that and you think it's fairly boring, but it actually makes quite a nice background, so it just breaks up the monotony of the background, and when you start to decorate it up, it all becomes part of the decoration as well. So I like to use index pages too. And then I've got some plain papers that I'd got a lot of from when I went to the scrap store, and they were a little bit too plain all the time. I've left some that are plain, but then on some of them I've just sprayed. So I got my little bottle, my little spray bottle with some coffee in, just sprayed it, dabbed off some of the excess, and then either put it in the oven to dry or just let it air dry, and it just broke up the monotony of the blank space. I've then gone through a couple of my vintage books that I've got, and again just got some text pages out of there as well, and then some more of the patterned papers. So I'll show you how I've put it all together so that you can see what it's going to look like. So I've got my patterned, my book page, my index page, plain paper, and I've then folded over these ends some vintage paper, some patterned book page, and I folded up so that I can make a pocket here. A vintage page folded at the bottom to make a little pocket. Plain paper. Now here I can see that it's plain there. Oh, fire engine just going by. And it's fine there because I've got like 3 different shades of colour there, but I just feel it's a little bit bland on this side, so I might end up doing a little bit of coffee spraying on that one. Another book page, another patterned page, but again I might do a bit of coffee dyeing on that one because again I just think it looks a little bit too bland. I might even do some stenciling on it. And then this one was from one of those really nice colouring books, and so I folded it in half because it was just too big, and as you can see, look, too long. So then I've just folded up the bottom as well, so that's going to go in the centre here, and then I'll have pockets there as well on the centre. Now, one of the things that you need to make sure of is that whatever size your cover is, your pages need to fit inside of there, so they need to be fractionally smaller in terms of, let me show you with this one, you'll be able to see. So can you see, you can see the blue all the way around. So it's about, my pages are about 1/8 of an inch smaller on all 4 sides, and that's so when I close my journal up, they're not all protruding beyond the edge of the cover. Now they are at the moment because they need to be stitched in place, but they're only protruding slightly. Now, a lot of people say, well, how many pages do you put in? This is going to be a single signature journal, and a signature is basically a collection of pages that you group together, and then you can make another collection of pages that you group together, and that would be a second signature, and so on and so forth. It really does depend on what you're going to be using your journal for. It depends on the papers that you're going to use. It depends on the spine that you've created. Now, because this is just a simple fold over, there isn't enough space to have lots and lots of pages in here, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I've actually got 13 sheets of paper in there, and that would probably really be my maximum amount that I would use in a single signature with a simple fold over cover. because we've yet to decorate it. And so even already it makes a decent sized journal, but by the time I've decorated it, it's probably going to end up being like that. And this is what we then call an alligator mouth. So you need to cut your papers to a slightly smaller size than your cover. You then need to group them together and put them in such a format that you like the way in which it looks as you're actually going through your journal, and you like the way that the pages are arranged and folded. Now this particular paper here, it ended up being a little bit too long, and I thought rather than cutting it off, I'll just fold it in, and then that will either make a flip out page, or I can attach it to this and it will make then a nice little pocket as well. So it really is a case of going through your own papers, seeing what you've got, putting a collection together excuse me, and then arranging them in such a format that it looks pleasing to your eye. So pages can both go, oh God, I can't speak this morning, can both go vertical or horizontal. I wanted something with a little bit of a different shape to it, so that I've got a full page, a half page, and then this page is then vertical, so it adds a little bit of shape as well to the arrangement of the pages. Now, just in case you don't know, because there are people out there who don't know, this is a sheet. It makes up 4 pages. Because we've folded it, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So you will see people saying, how many pages do you put in your journal? And they might say 80, and you might go, oh my God, that's a lot of sheets of paper. But it isn't. It would be 20 pages, 20 sheets of paper, then folded in half to be able to give them 4 actual pages. All right. So when you see these people stating rather large numbers, what they probably mean is 1 face, 2 face, 3 face, 4 face. So I tend to call it sheets of paper folded in half to then make pages. All right, so I've got 13 sheets, which will make 13, double that, 26, double that, 52. There you go, that's the mathematical side of it. So I've now got 52 pages within this actual journal. So next step is to go and choose your pages, and then I'll show you how to put them together. So I'm now going to sew my signature into place. There are many ways in which you can attach a signature. If you don't like sewing, you can use an elastic band, you can use some elastic, you can use string, you can use baker's twine, if you really don't like sewing. The sewing helps to keep the pages more sturdily in place, in position. So you can either sew your pages in with the papers completely flat, or with them slightly angled. Now I prefer to do them slightly angled, so that's the way in which I actually attach my pages. Before you attach them though, if you're going to do any sewing, so for instance, if I want to sew this flap down to make a pocket and I want to do some fancy sewing on there, I would need to do that first before I actually attach my pages into the cover itself. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go through, because I've got half pages in here and I want to make sure that they stay in the correct place. I'm just going to go through, make sure that I like the position and in terms of height of where my pages are going to go, because there's going to be nothing worse than having them all a bit skew-iff. So there I've got a half page and I want that to be there. And there I've got a half page, so that one needs to come up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put a paper clip to hold those all in position. And I've got another half page there, so I'll slip that one underneath. And they don't all have to be smooth edge either, as in pre-cut. You can rip the edges of your paper too, so here it's all ripped. So I'm happy with the placement of those. Just make sure on the other side that they're doing the same thing. And I'll paper clip that side in too. Just move that one a little. See here, I've got some odd shaped pages, so I'm just going to paper clip those in place as well. Maybe a touch higher. So I'm going to paper clip the ends of those. And it doesn't matter how many paper clips you add. You can add, you know, hundreds if you want. It just gives you that little bit of comfort knowing that they're not going to be moving about. It's a little bit of faff, it's a little bit time consuming, but you know, if it helps to keep everything together, it's worth the effort. It's another half and then that one. So I'm going to paper clip. Ooh, run out of paper clips. Clip. Move that one down a touch. Do the same on the other side. And then they should all be cross-fingered at the right kind of height. And then I'm going to binder clip them all to the front cover. Now again, you'll see people with little measuring bits of paper or a ruler and poking the holes through the pages first and then through the cover. I have done that in the past and I've found it hard to keep them all lined up, and I just found this way a little bit quicker and a little bit easier for me, but do whatever suits you best and that you find easiest to do. So I've now got my pages in place and I've got my book all folded up. I'm going to use my pokey tool. Now it's better if you have a pokey tool that's the same sort of thickness all the way along. As you can see, mine starts off narrow and gets quite wide towards the top here because you don't want too big a hole. And so I'll only poke this part of the way through. Now I'm going to do what's called a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. Most people use a 3-hole, which means that they're going to poke 3 holes, one in the middle, one at the bottom, one at the top. I'm going to use 5 because of my half pages. Now again, you can measure if you want to find the actual centre point, but I'm just going to do it by eye. So I'm going to poke one in the middle and then one at the bottom. And the one at the bottom is about 3/4 of an inch from the edge, but I'm doing it so that I can hold this cream piece in place. So there's 3 holes, and then between the middle one and the top one I'm going to do one about halfway. And that's my holes now in place through my pages and through my cover. Then what thread do you use? Well, don't use ordinary sewing cotton like this is, because any kind of pressure on it, it just snaps. So that's ordinary sewing cotton isn't good enough. Even if you double layer it, it's just not strong enough. This is a cone of thread that I got ages ago. God knows what type of thread it is, and I couldn't even tell you where it's from. But it's a really thick, strong thread. If I show you, it's really hard to break it. And it hurts your fingers. This is proper waxed linen that some bookmakers use, so you can get that. It can be quite expensive. You can use baker's twine, depending on the thickness of it. You might need to make your holes a little bit bigger, or you can use dental floss. Dental floss is very similar to the waxed linen thread. So I've already got my needle threaded, and I've got a really long needle. Now what I do with my thread is I run it through my wax so that it helps it to glide. So I just run it along the actual wax so it's now coated. And so long as you can go up and down with the needle, you've got it sorted. So I'm going to go down in the middle. And then I'm going to leave quite a long tail at this end. In fact, I can even wrap it around my paper clip there to just hold it a little bit in place. So what I'm going to do is go down and up through each of the holes, up to the top, then work my way down to the bottom, and then back up to the middle. So I've gone down the middle, the going up one is the difficult one to try and get all the... Let's tell you what I'll do. Let's go through that hole again. There we go. Make sure that it's all aligned. Up, down to the next one, and down there. Right, so I've gone up and down all the way up to the top. Now I need to go all the way down to the bottom. So I'm going to come back through that hole, and the knack is trying not to pierce your thread. This one's proving a real pain, this hole. There we go. And the middle one. Through that one. Down that bottom one. And if you're unsure of the stitching, just get some scrappy bits of paper and just have a practice with your scrap bits of paper before you actually do it on your journal. Okay, so I'm now back up to the middle again. So I need to now make sure that those stitches are now pulled in nice and firmly so that I don't have any saggy thread on the outside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the eye of the needle underneath that first stitch that I made, so it now loops it around to just hold it. And then I'm going to tie them together by forming a loop and going through that loop twice. and again. Form a loop and then go through the loop twice. Now if you've made really big holes as you've been sewing, it might be that your needle might be a little bit too thick, or that you just made the holes too big in the first instance. So now I can take off all these clips. And that then is all my pages now in place in my journal. And that's now basically ready to decorate up. So I can start to decorate the pages, glue any additional bits to it. But that's the thing that I'm going to be going through with you in the next few videos, is how I'm going to decorate some of these pages up. I'm not going to show you how to decorate the whole journal. I'm only going to show you how to decorate some of it, because then you can go and find your own ideas and watch other YouTubers and get inspiration from them, and then you can add your own things to your journal as well. But it makes quite a nice, pleasing flip through. Quite happy with that. And I can see the potential of what I can do with those pages. So I'm going to make 4 of these, as I say, and going to do this as the swap on my group. So if you want to join in the swap, the actual details will be on the event in the group as well, as to how many pages, what sort of size, all that sort of thing, and what you need to do to be able to complete the swap. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Now hopefully I'll see you in future videos where I start to decorate these up, and I hope that you found some inspiration from it. See you all again soon. Bye for now.